Jennifer Brown is a repeat guest on the Vandy program. We talked last, I want to say it was November or so, and we're talking again. It's the new year, or yeah. So I guess if we last spoke in November, then it's the new year for us. Jennifer, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm
Thanks for
phenomenal.
having me too.
You're quite welcome, and thanks for your flexibility. We were scheduled to talk a little later today, and then we're like, we're both available now, so why not? It's a random Wednesday as we tape this episode, and so Jennifer has a new book out, and it's all about, well, staying positive and looking on the bright side. Tell us some more about that.
Well, it's got it right here. I don't know
Hey,
if is it backwards?
no, it's
Probably.
forwards.
Okay, it's backwards to me. Uh, it this was kind of a almost a tongue in cheek sort of thing, not unlike my Ginger Snapped, where it was just sort of a fun little book. But it was the idea of everyone's always so down. We've been kind of in a dark period for the last several years, and I'm in Minnesota, so that helps too. And I wanted to explain to people that you can make the world a better place just by focusing on your little world. Like, you can't take you can't carry the weight of the world on your shoulders, because you become paralyzed, right? You can't fix everything, and we don't have control over in Iran or Venezuela or Ukraine. We don't. There's nothing I can do that's going to change that. What's going on in the world? Nothing. But I can clean up the space around me, and that will make me feel better. I can give a compliment to a stranger on the street, and that will make both of us feel better. So there are all these little things that we can do that go a long way in making our collective better. It's not going to solve all the world's problems, but if we're not all at each other's throats, it might help. So
You had a
that's what
piece.
this was about. Very small things anybody can do to make the world a better place.
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt. You had a piece in there about using your blinkers.
Yes, that was the first one, as a matter of fact. And I think if everybody just did that, we'd all be better off. Like, religiously use your blinker, not randomly.
So both turning it on when you're
Turning it
turning
on
and
and not leaving it on would help too.
not
Yeah.
leaving it on,
Yeah.
turning it off when you have to turn it off. Give me an example of some of the other pieces of the book.
Oh, bringing back some of the older or more common courtesies that we used to all do, holding the door open for the person behind you, or pulling out a chair for somebody at dinner. You know, not too long ago, if you went out to dinner with a group of people, and as a woman, I got up to go to the bathroom or something, all the men would stand up. Do you remember that?
I do, I do.
and and then they would sit back down after you left, and then they would stand up again when you returned. Somebody would pull out your seat and help push it back in for you. Nobody does that anymore. I can't remember the last time that happened. And but things like that, I think, went a long way in making a more civilized world that we live in.
Why do you think that went away? Like specifically the standing up and the politeness, courtesy
Probably
before.
the feminist movement. I don't know. I mean, I recall my first ex-husband doing it. That was still pretty. So we were married in the early 90s, dated in the late 80s. And he did all those things. It was common practice, to do the things were far more traditional back then. And by the time I was divorced and met my second ex-husband, he still did some of those things because he'd been brought up that way. Um, but it wasn't things had most of those traditions had kind of gone by the wayside, along with things like, like my first wedding. it was a first wedding, so it was a big deal. And now they don't do most of those things, like, the cards or the invitations. Like, if I recall correctly, there were like 3 or 4 cards tucked in there, and one was to return, and I don't know that they do that anymore. And maybe there's no reason to do some of these things. They're just costly. But at the same time, having those, instead of just going to a website now to fill out the RSVP and everything, I get it. It's convenient, and it's probably more efficient. Probably easier to keep track of everything. It doesn't get lost in the mail, all of that. I can understand why we do some of these things, but I don't know that it's necessarily a good thing all the way around. Like, we don't do note cards. Does anybody send thank you cards or postcards, or we don't do personal mail anymore. Like, anything that is in my mailbox is probably something I really don't want. It's either an ad or some bad news. So there's no, like, I can recall going to the mailbox and being excited, what's in here, and none of that's gone. Same with the phone. Getting a phone call used to be, um, it was usually a good thing. I mean, it might also be bad news sometimes, but now the phone rings and it's a solicitor, or it's spam, or it's never somebody I want to talk to. They're going to text me first. And, so yeah, I don't know if we can bring these things back. I wish we would, but I don't know if the kids want that.
Well, we can certainly try. It's funny because I'm thinking with my own kids, they're actually apt to pick up the phone and give me a call. One's away at school, and he'll just semi-randomly pick up the phone and give me a call. And I've gone away from the "is everything okay" to, hey, they're just checking in. Because it used to be, I think we had I don't know, maybe we had about a 10, 15-year span where you would never call somebody without first sending them a text message saying, do you have a few minutes to catch up? Or if you did call somebody out of the blue, they knew that something really bad was happening. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if some of that is changing, or it's going to change a little bit, dribs and drabs from folks like us raising our kids, or at least instilling in our kids some of those little niceties that we're all getting away from.
I saw something on, I think it was the Today Show today, about how not kids, when I say kids, I mean like 30 and younger, maybe 35 and younger. They're doing watch parties again, like to watch like Survivor or whatever, the big shows are on, that they're going to bars to do it. I think that's excellent. And the kids need to go out and drink a little bit more, because you do some stuff that you'll ask somebody out, right? You'll dance with somebody. And I think there's a generation that kind of missed all of that stupidness. Of course, everything gets put on there's videos of everything. And in our generation, nobody has videos of, thank God, some of the stupid things we did. Right. I think if we got rid of smartphones, life would be, I believe, ultimately better. And I love my smartphone, don't get me wrong. But I would be willing to forego it for a landline and a little piece, and, not always being on.
Yeah, and I don't know if you and I talked about this maybe the last time we chatted, or if it was another conversation that I had, but remember the old days of like going to the mall, and I can remember even into the 90s when you would be at the mall and you would tell somebody you were with, I'll meet you back here at 4:00. Bye. And then if it's 4:05, you're not panicking.
Right.
You're near the store, and oh, there they are. Okay, we're back, and everything's okay. And the old days of picking people up, mom would pick you up after tennis practice or something, and that was that. tennis practice was done at 5:30 or
And if
whatever.
she showed up at 6, you had to wait,
Yeah,
right?
she showed up
I
at
mean,
6.
and they
Yeah,
did. That's
yeah.
that's we used to go roller skating every Saturday, and between my parents or my friends' parents, somebody would pick us up. We'd take the bus there, which was 2 or 3 mile trip, and we'd get a ride home only because it was dark or because we didn't want to, or I don't remember what the reason was, but we took the bus everywhere back in the day as kids. But if the mom wasn't there, you didn't panic. It was just an opportunity to do some more hanging out. There was no panic. Now there's apps to track everybody in your family. I I get those, they make me so sad that people use them because all it's doing is ramping up your anxiety. Like there's a commercial for the product, and the daughter's like, she was a teenager, and she's like, Mom, what's wrong? And the mom is like, oh, I'm just imagining getting abducted, or a shooting, or all these horrible things. And the daughter's like, wow, Mom, that's wild. Use this app and you'll feel better, to track me. And I'm just thinking, oh my God, I can't think of a worse thing for your anxiety. Because if something goes wrong, and she doesn't get that hit of knowing where her kid is, she's going to freak out even more. And that's going down the wrong alley as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I don't know if you're familiar with the psychologist Jonathan Haidt, the author. He's at NYU, I believe. He's written a few books on the anxious generation. Was that a furry creature of some sort
Yes.
that just passed by? Okay.
Sorry.
Please don't apologize. It wouldn't be normal without that sort of thing happening. But Jonathan lives in New York City, and I remember him. I think he told the story on Twitter or in a combination of tweets that he had. His kids are older now than when he told the story. Oh, you're totally fine. And he actually had them go out on an expedition in New York City, and the idea was, you're going to take the subway without me, and you're going to go from here to there without me, or you're going to, I think one of the expeditions was, you've got to get from somewhere uptown to our house in Midtown, or what have you, and you don't have a phone to use to do this. You've got to rely on your navigation skills. And it was fascinating. The kids were fine. Obviously, the kids ended up being fine. But it was a fascinating experiment, and maybe more so how the parents, because I think Jonathan is a Gen Xer.
This sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's and part of that I mean, you were talking about the alcohol thing, and I find that interesting, just sort of how much, because I've got friends who work in the alcohol industry, and everybody's having a real tough time, and the whiskey distillers have just one of them stopped bottling for an entire year. They're just like,
I have
yeah.
heard anecdotes like that it's really impacting them.
Yeah, and so on the one hand, you don't want to have an alcohol problem at a young age, but on the other hand, the pendulum, which always swings way too far one direction, has swung too far in the direction of taking out liquid courage
And
in all forms.
I don't know, but aren't they smoking a whole lot more pot?
They are smoking a whole lot
So,
more pot. That's at least.
It seems to me that the pot isn't as social as alcohol is, right?
I think the other problem with it, if I understand correctly, I don't know what the laws are in Minnesota. Here in Illinois, where I am, it's legal. And I think the legal stuff is stronger and more concentrated, and it's available in many more different forms. So that also plays a role in less other stuff happening because
Right.
it takes less to get the high that it used to take when the stuff was illegal.
Yeah, I the legality, I still don't know if because there was the whole hemp, you know, different classes, and I don't know enough. I don't smoke pot. I don't know enough about the different what makes it, you know, with the THC and all of that. You can't walk around the city without smelling it. It's everywhere.
So
So
it's legal
I
in
there it's
Minnesota.
certainly like I can go to a dispensary. Yes, yes. So
Okay.
it must be legal. Um,
Yeah.
but even before it was legal, you could still it was, you know, because they did it in stages, as if I recall. It was, you know, there was medical, and then it was whatever the hemp. It was below, like the THC was below a certain level or something, and now it's just everywhere. But yes, I think it is much more potent than it was back in the day when we were smoking it, and you just got giggly. Now I think it just like wipes you out. Again, I haven't done it, but my understanding is it seems to be kind of a more solitary activity than getting together and, you know, having a beer or two with your friends. But
Yeah.
you know,
And it's funny, to that end, I saw another piece, and this was probably on X today, about the role of, and again, I forget, apologies to whoever wrote it because it was kind of brilliant, the role of the quote unquote host. And where it was on Gaping Void, the culture blog newsletter, and what they were talking about was these, it kind of along the same lines as watch parties, but what, because there's no third place anymore, or there's less of a third place than there used to be. You don't go to the library in college. You know, you can study in your dorm room. You don't, or study on your phone or whatever. Because of all the third places that are going away, what's becoming popular is someone who acts as a host. Now, it's going to be a smaller, if I remember correctly from the newsletter, it's a smaller group. But the idea is there's going to be that one person in the circle of influence who's going to say, we're all going to this place to do this thing, or I'm going to have a dinner party and I want these five people to be there with me, and they're each going to bring a guest or whatever. And that was becoming, it's almost that with the phone being ubiquitous and with tech being ubiquitous, there wasn't a ringleader that wasn't an electronic device. So the value is in somebody who acts as that ringleader without the electronic device. Kind of the social butterfly, the person who's at the party who's making sure everybody's got enough something to drink. Um, and I found that really interesting because it's like we we really need that, but I don't know if we're aware that we need
that's so interesting because, you know, I was just thinking about, you know, before I got married and had kids, we had that person, right? There was always somebody in your social group who put together the parties and you know, the dinner parties or whatever it was we were doing. Um, and you know, it was, I'm trying to think how she did it. It was, you know, she got on the phone and this is what's happening, and you know, we showed up. Um, so it's fascinating. I guess it's good that it's coming back to that. But you're saying that they're not using devices for this? Did I
um
understand that?
yeah, well, not necessarily. I mean, there's still going to be somebody who's going to send out the digital invite or whatever, but it's not, but it's that you're less reliant on, um it's almost like somebody decides that they want the the text message group to actually stop messaging each other and let's go to a bar so that we can have this conversation
Okay, I see what you're
at the
saying.
bar.
Okay. Yeah.
And I'm going to be the person in the group who says enough, and we have to get together in person, sort of extending. I guess the concept would be kind of extending that text message group to an IRL thing, which
I think
is
that's a great idea. Yeah. I'm not in many text groups. Um, Certainly not big ones. I take myself out of those really quickly, because it's just nonstop pinging, and then you have to scroll through it to read to get caught. It's like I'm not interested in this. I'll do it with my kids, and maybe a handful of friends, but and then it's usually around an event instead of just this constant going on sort of thing. Um, I think about this a lot because when my friends and I do get together, um, we all have cell phones, but we also grew up, we were young, and before we had kids, we were the same people doing this stuff. So when we do get together, nobody is on their phone. Like, I think part of it is that we're not. That's just not what we're used to. Like, we know, when we get together, we want to catch up with each other. So nobody has to say put your phone away. We just don't even bring them out. But I don't know where I was recently, and walked by, and it was like a restaurant, and there was a group of people. I don't know if it was a family or if it was just a group, uh, colleagues or something, but probably 8 to 10 people. Every single one of them was on their phone, and I just thought, well, this why are you even going out? Like, that's an expensive way to sit on your phone. Um, so I'm kind of grateful that as Gen X, we missed a lot of that. Like, I mean, I have my phone right here, but I don't do most of my things on it. I still do most everything on my computer, even texting. So my phone is pretty much still just a phone, which I fight to keep it that way. I really don't like getting text messages from stores or um, doctors, or I just got one about my tires need rotating and all. It's like, and I don't know where you send them to, but because there is a convenience factor too, right? But at the
right.
same time, I really just want my phone to be for personal use, like friends and family.
Yeah.
I want it to be a happy experience, is really what I want, not I got to put this, I need to get this refilled, or whatever. Walgreens will call me. They will call, text, and leave a message. So, and they all do it at the same time,
Yeah.
and it's infuriating. There's probably a way to I need it. I need to know that I need to get it, and then the email on top of it. Um, so I know I can probably opt out of it, but I still want at least one notification. I don't need all three at one time. And it's all automated too. So the voicemail that they leave is, AI or whatever it is.
Right.
And then if I don't pick it up in the next 2 or 3 days or whatever day, they'll do it all over again, asking if I'm going to pick it up. And then it becomes like they don't need to remind me. I need what it is, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know. It gets me upset. I got a text message about something. Oh, I think we talked about this before. It was I was at, I don't know where I was, some store, maybe Target. And I've been getting emails ever since. How was your rate your experience? It's like, it's Target. I, you're making it worse. And no, I'm not going to leave a response. I will not. It's Target. It's the same experience it's been for the last 50 years. I'm not doing it. Um, so
That
I think
reminds
that's a. Mhm.
Sorry, that reminds me of that meme of would you recommend Microsoft Office to a friend? It's like, no, I'm not going to sit around talking about
Right.
Microsoft products with my friends.
I'll bitch about him, but
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and I guess yeah. To that end, yeah, you were talking about the tires, the people with the tire. I think my tire My tire guy was the only one to wish me a happy birthday last year.
Oh,
I
that's
had friends that forgot my birthday, but the tire company wished me a happy birthday. That was something else.
yeah, I
So
get it from my finance guy, and then not the tire people, but who was the other one? And I love them for it.
yeah,
But it's my the people who do my furnace.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um I love that. I mean, they send a card, a Christmas card and a birthday card. It's not a text. I like that. I think that's great customer service. When I used to work in my dad's office, he was an ophthalmologist, and he sent out Christmas cards every year. And back then, everybody did, right? You send them to the patients and other doctors and the reps that sell you whatever eye drops and stuff like that. Your attorney, all of that, and that was very common practice, to do professional cards like that. And for some people, those are the only ones they get. And I'm like, I'm in that group now. Like I get two. Oh, and then I get the one from my brother that goes out the day before Thanksgiving, so I get it the day after Thanksgiving. But I know that's coming. So I wish we could get back to that, sending out Christmas cards and doing. I know some people still do some of them, but I don't. I don't think the majority of us do it.
I think a lot of us have outsourced the family update and the current photo and all that. We've outsourced it to social, and it becomes a really challenging thing. So you just end up saying, well, they can find me on Facebook
You
and see
know,
what's going on. I don't know if that's the
I
best
don't even
thing.
know that we need that sort of Christmas card. The because I get those too, and it's like, oh, I wrote about that years ago on my blog, and I did a mock up of one, and it was, I was still in my divorce area. Things were not in a good. I was not in a good place, and I think a dog had died or something, and I was caring for my mother, and she had the dementia was awful, and so I wrote. I'll have to find it because it's really funny. But it was like the ones where, oh, Shannon and Bobby are doing, they're in medical school at the Ivy League, and it's like, yeah, that's not my life. So I don't know that those are helpful, but I'm talking the typical just printed out Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays, and you sign your name. I think just that is more than enough because you took the time to write out who it's going to, you put a stamp on it, you put it in the mailbox. That's some effort, right? And that lets the person know who's receiving it that they were thought about. Um, and then they don't have to compare themselves to all the stuff that you know you're trying to make sound really great, even though your marriage is falling apart and all this other stuff that you've left. I mean, it's basically Facebook in a card, right? Oh, um, I don't know that we need to go back to those, but I do think some sort of, I think more formal gestures like that would be, there's a reason for them, like, I don't know about you, but I can remember the last time I sat down at a table to eat, right? I mean, I live alone, so for the most part, I'm either eating over the sink or at the couch, depending on if I'm watching TV or something. If I go out, obviously, I'm eating at a table, and if I'm with other people, I certainly am. But I don't do all of that at all. I did with my kids when they were still here, but that's only because we had no other place to do that. And but I wonder how many people still gather all at the same time for a meal.
That that's another thing I saw. I believe it was yesterday on X, and it was in response to. I thought this was really interesting because it was in response to RFK Jr. saying that we need to get back to real food. I think that was his message yesterday, something along those lines. And the respondent was like, yes, totally agree, but it's also intimidating for every single person to be like, well, I got to cut all the sodium out and all the prepared foods out and all of the this, that, and the other thing out. So their point was start with your family with you're going to make something and you're going to put it down there, and even if it's a frozen pizza, it's the effort behind, okay, it's a frozen pizza and now you're starting. And it's not just because parents are busy, a two-parent household with a bunch of kids running around to and from their events or whatever. You're going to lose sight of taking care of yourself. You're going to be worried about what are the kids going to eat. And that was the other piece that this was a really brilliant post. I'll have to dig it up. It was the other piece was making sure that if you're all of you in the family are sitting down at the same time, and that the kids are watching you as you all eat. And even if it's a 5 minute, it's just the frozen pizza and this is all we got tonight and we're going to do more. I don't know if you're a fan of the book Atomic Habits by James Clear, but
I just started that this week. I've
it's
had it for years, and I just started it, and I have so much to say about that. I'm only like 3 chapters in, but and I don't mean to interrupt, but it's an interesting story. So I'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, but I was going to close the story out by saying that it's you start building those habits of, okay, well, we sat down for 2 meals last week as a family, and next week we're going to do 3, and I'm going to actually make a casserole for one of them, and so on and so forth. And you build the momentum just from doing a little bit and then a little bit more and then a little bit more, which is the general. So I'll segue over to you because this is the general topic of the book is just getting incrementally better by building
Yeah,
those habits.
yeah, and the Atomic Habits, that's wild because so a friend of mine sent me a text a couple weeks ago, and she's not tech savvy at all. Like text messages are difficult for her. And I'm not making fun. I've known her since school. So we go way back. It's one of those friends that you know everything about this person, right? And we actually went to Las Vegas together a month or so ago to celebrate my birthday. And she's divorced a couple times like me. So anyway, but she sent me a text message, and because we'd both been kind of complaining that we live solitary lives, we live alone now that the kids are grown up, but we want to do something, we want to do more things socially, but we don't know where to start. And so and that's a pretty common complaint of, I think, my generation, especially the ones who are single. Anyway, she sent me a text message with a picture of a book, and she's like, this is the book that's going on at this book club. Check it out. That's all she. I've never heard anything about a book club from her before. I don't know where it is, but she did manage to get the picture in there, and I kind of ignored it for a little while. And then I was by Barnes and Noble, and I walked in there, and they had the book, and so I picked it up. I don't even know if I'm going to be in this book club, but I'm like, I got to start somewhere, right? And I'm walking by, and they've got a table of the Atomic Habits or whatever. It's habits, right?
Yeah.
And then the workbook. And so I'm looking at it, and I had bought the digital version of it whenever it came out. Never read it. It's sitting in my Kindle somewhere. But I bought the book, and then I bought the workbook that goes with it because I do that sort of thing. Because I think I get all excited, right? I'm going to do this, and it's still sitting on my dining room table. But I wouldn't have picked it up if she hadn't sent me that text message about trying to go out and get more involved and do more social things and all of that. And I'm not, um, I'm not a particularly superstitious or, um, uh, I don't know what the word is. I'm pretty grounded in, I'm a kind of a practical sort of person, right? And so I don't go into the whole woo-woo, new agey stuff. But I'm coming around to believing that there really is something to what you put out. You call it karma, call it whatever. If what was it? God, was it Abraham Lincoln who said whether you think you can or you can't, you're right? Was it Abraham Lincoln?
Maybe Henry Ford, maybe a whole bunch of other people,
Okay.
but
Somebody
yeah,
said that. It's a famous quote. I want to say it was Abraham Lincoln, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was Ben Franklin or Ford. Doesn't matter. The point is, it's true. This is, it goes The Secret or Manifesting. It's all the same stuff, right? But that's all real new agey, and uh it's kind of a turn off to me because it's like, I just want to do the work. But but your attitude is everything. And it's taken me 60 years to figure that out. And we were talking about this before, the whole complaining about your reach on, on X or Twitter or whatever, and yet that you don't seem to it doesn't seem to make things better when you complain, right? Why would it? So getting back to the Atomic Habits, I'm only a few chapters in, and I'm pretty sure I know what it's going to say. Doesn't matter. I want to hear it from somebody, and I'm very happy about this book so far. So yes, whatever.
yes, a ringing endorsement for a book
Yes,
that you're a
yes,
few chapters into, but
yeah.
yeah, the general concept is
I think, but that's the way anything that we do is built on experience and success with that, right? If you do something for the first time and you fail at it, you're less likely to continue to try to do it. And I think that's far more true now with these phones and instant gratification and all of that than when we were little, when we were kids, right? We'd go outside. Our mothers didn't want us to come back in the house until it was dinner time because they didn't want us around. And so we had to figure stuff out on our own. And we had to deal with stuff on our own. We had to cope with whatever it was we got ourselves into and either fix it or deal with finding somebody to help us fix it. And I think kids, there's a generation that missed out on that. They weren't outside alone. There were parents hovering over them, or they had a phone that they could easily get a ride or whatever. So now they're adults, or they're almost adults, and they're not prepared for, they don't have the resilience built into them that childhood gives you, right? So they'll try something and they'll fail, and they'll stop trying, or they'll do something else. And failure itself, I love failure because to me it's like I failed more than I've succeeded by far. But it teaches me what I need to do better, what I'm good at, what I'm not good at. I mean, the amount of learning I get from it is amazing. But I was allowed to fail as a child, and it wasn't the end of the world. It wasn't, I didn't get punished for it or anything like that. It was part of life.
um now we're getting all philosophical.
I know.
I guess, yeah, which is fine. It's funny. I was thinking as you were talking about my youngest I would drive her crazy because she'd come into the living room or whatever, and say, "Dad, I'm bored," and I would say the cure to boredom is between your ears, and she got really annoyed at that, but there was something about childhood as Gen Xers where you allowed yourself to get bored, and then you allowed yourself to find the cure for that boredom. And that cure was normally in some sort of, it's you run outside and you find the neighbor kids or a sibling or something, come up with something to do, or you're stuck on a rainy day, so you're like, all right, I'm bored. Do I read something? Do I write something? Do I start some sort of craft or whatever. And part of it is the danger of these phones, that we've taken away that ability to allow your mind to wander for a little bit, and then you figure
Yeah.
out, okay, this is how I'm gonna cure my own boredom, because I'm the one who's got the power to cure my own boredom.
I think about this, like, it used to be using the bathroom was your moment to do that, right? But now people bring the phone in with them. Like you can't take 30 seconds or whatever in the bathroom to just be alone with yourself. Um, yeah, I miss the days of just sitting down and daydreaming or letting my mind wander. And I don't do it anymore. I will start scrolling. Do kids like lie on the grass and look at the clouds go by? That was such an amazing experience as a kid. I can't remember the last time I did it, but it was that's getting into that moment where you're not freaking out about the past or worrying about the future. And we had a lot of that as kids, I think. And I'm trying to get back to that myself. And I have found that when I do that, when I stop worrying about the future, which is hard to do right now, we're bombarded with news and what's going wrong, and we're at war, and all, it's just constant, and I can't keep up with it. And I don't want to. If the bombs start going off, I'll deal with it then. If they don't, great, and more power to all the powers that be. But as Gen X, that's kind of our happy place, right? We grew up with the threat of bombs, so it's like, I can handle this. Um, I can't worry about everything anymore, and I spent a lot of time worrying about everything. So I don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah,
And
I hear
it's
you on that.
what's amazing to me is that it's pretty much that easy, right? You're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, yeah. There becomes. I, I told a friend recently that I'm um, trying to say "fu" without having "fu" money, and or you're entering peak IDGAF mode, to use the acronym, and sometimes that's just what's necessary. I started with my own news consumption habits. I was just like, you know what, I'm not gonna watch American television for a while. So I have become a borderline Sky News addict out of the UK, and turn it on in the morning when I get up. It's approaching, or it's already midday there, and they've got something going on that is, well, before the Iran stuff, it was not necessarily related to what's happening in the U.S., although it seems like they will use every opportunity to, how do I put this delicately? Sky News is rather liberal. I mean, I think they would make MS Now very happy with their bent. At least Sky News out of the UK is liberal. I'm told the Australian version is quite a bit conservative. So whatever opportunity they have to bring American politics, American political leadership into the equation, they'll do it. But for the most part, watching them concern themselves with things that are not American is, in some cases, it's rather refreshing. Just even learning how the other half operates. Their governmental system is really weird. For instance, the 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 competing parties. So right now it's the liberals in charge, and I'm going to sound like an expert. I'm not an expert, but the liberals in charge. So they have their cabinet, and I forget if they call it the cabinet, but the conservatives are second in the pecking order. So they have a shadow cabinet. And so I guess what the shadow cabinet does is pretend that its views on all of these things matter, even though it has no governing power. So it's kind of like when Schumer gets up there and says that John Thune is crazy. Um, it's that, but it's also they have a
Excuse me.
bless you. They have a secretary of energy, a shadow secretary of energy, who would get up there whenever the actual secretary of energy says something, and the shadow secretary would say the exact opposite. But then they had a guy. Res- did he resign or get kicked out? Well, it depends on who you ask. But he left to join Nigel Farage's party.
Sorry.
Bless you. No, that's okay. You might be allergic to some of those animals. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I was beginning to wonder that myself. It's like, well, that's convenient. Oh, sorry.
But yeah, the shadow Secretary of Commerce or something resigned from the Conservative Party and joined Nigel Farage's Reform Party, which is in third place, I guess, or maybe not. And then so what they were doing was forming their own shadow cabinet to shadow the other shadow that was shadowing the actual cabinet. And they like to talk over there too. It's a unique system. So, and I know you're the guest, so my apologies. But the the whole idea of getting up there and having the prime minister who leads his party get up there and say, blah, 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 we're great, and then have the competing party person say, blah, 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 you aren't great, and they're doing it to each other's face, pretty much.
But
One
isn't
stands
that
up,
exactly what we have?
but it's across, they're across the table from each other, so they have a table set up and they
Yeah.
have the speaker up here, and then the prime minister gets up there and says, we need to do more about this sort of issue, and he's talking to the speaker, Mr. Speaker, blah, 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 and I think that the other side would agree that we're doing a great job, and then he sits down, and then the other person gets recognized, and she gets up there and says, she's from the Conservatives, she gets up there and says, no, 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 you're doing the wrong thing, Mr. Speaker, he's doing the wrong thing, blah, 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 blah. And they just keep going back and forth. And then sometimes they call somebody in the audience. But it's the actual, it would be like President Trump being in Congress yelling at
Okay.
whoever whoever the number one leader of the opposition would be. But it's just a completely different system, and it sounds like I need to get out more too, because if I've got this much knowledge of
British politics.
British politics, I do find it interesting though. The woman, the MP, member of Parliament. I always thought military police, but I'm told that they have a different sort of thing over there. The MP and leader of the Conservative Party is a woman named Kemi Badenoch. And she is of African descent. And I just find it really interesting that the UK had Margaret Thatcher, and no one talks about how not a lot of people in the US who are not conservative will talk about how great Margaret Thatcher was simply because she was a conservative. And so there's not a lot of deference to the fact that she was the trailblazer among major countries who had a female leader. And now you've got the instance where the Conservative Party, so Thatcher's party, is led by an African British woman. And you hear nothing about that as anywhere but in the UK and amongst the Conservatives, that this
Yeah.
is also a trailblazer who
I'm
could.
familiar with her, but only because of hanging out with the Brits and with the transgender issue. So, all the turfs or whatever you want to call it. And she is, very much pro woman and in protecting women's spaces and rights and things like that. And she's been wonderful, I think. So I am very familiar with her. And I agree with you. It's, I'm trying to stay out of politics only because it's so, uh, is it a uniparty? Does it really make a difference? I don't really know anymore. I'm kind of disappointed with everybody. Um, I don't know that, especially as a Minnesotan, I go on social media and I see my governor talking about how he's going to put a stop to all the fraud. And the only reason anybody's hearing about it is because he's doing something about it. And I'm so offended by that because that's not true. It's a bold face, whatever. It's a lie. And yet he puts this stuff out there repeatedly. It's always like that. So every time you open up social media, it's a it doesn't have to be him. It could be any of them putting out, and any party, it doesn't matter what party either. These hyperbolic and very bombastic and very lying, false pats on the back. And it's like, you haven't done anything. And I don't care if it's the Epstein files or the fraud or any of this stuff. It's like, I want to see somebody go to prison. Like, I want to see somebody pay for what they've done. And so far, the only people paying for it are us. It's my taxes are getting taken away. It's the amount of money that it costs to go through the Epstein files or whatever. I want to see some results, and we're not getting any of that. So when Kristi Noem was fired, I was all for that. Like, she's done very little as far as I'm concerned. Pam Bondi, she should go too. And I don't know, as women go, I'm disappointed in that they seem to, and again, I'm pulling myself out. I have been opting out of this, but it isn't, I see a lot of women politicians do this on both sides where it's more, maybe it's all politicians, but I think for women, it's a mistake. It's, this is, I'm making these tweets or these videos or whatever because I'm basically hoping I can get a spot on The View or on some other thing after I'm done here. So it's like, you're not concerned about me or the people, the citizens. This is just a stepping stone to some other gig. And so nothing will get done. It's like there are all these, I don't know. I'm not even sure where I was going with that.
Well, that's a good point. They're treating it like an audition for their next job.
Right.
As opposed to,
I would love to see a Margaret Thatcher type woman get up there and say, I'm not a Hillary Clinton fan. I disagree with much of her policies, but that woman has resolve. Like, she is determined and dedicated. And I'm not advocating for her, but she's got some balls to her, and she's willing to do, and maybe criminally she's willing to do it. I don't know, but most of the people like that we've seen women wise they're either, they want to be pretty and they want to be liked and they don't want to rock the boat or whatever. We need more women like Margaret Thatcher who just want to do what they were elected to do. And again, this is neither party. Both parties are, the only star we have right now is John Fetterman that I can see.
And what's interesting about him was that because if you remember when he ran against Dr. Oz and won, and quite a few people on the right were saying, oh my gosh, this is just...
He's done a complete turnaround. Like,
he has.
I mean, and I think obviously when he was running, he had just had the stroke, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, I mean, his speech was still, he was still struggling with a lot of things. And I don't know him prior to that. So I don't, I'm not sure what he was like before that. But it seems to me He's not willing to toe the line of the Democratic Party. He's going to do what he believes is right. That's what I want.
Yeah, and I wonder if I've heard some of the thought leader intellectual dark web types talk about the preference cascade,
I'm not familiar
where
with
when
it.
you get to a point, it's kind of like when Trump got elected the first time. It took maybe a couple people to say, I might support this guy, and then with the second time, it was becoming less. Um, Once the business types, like the Peter Thiel types, the the folks who had made a lot of money were then saying, and I think this is more evident in the 24 election, when were then saying, I don't know, but I think I gotta support Trump here because this is the better option. And once those preferences start cascading, then people start realizing I'm not alone if I do this. And I think the same sort of thing happened with Fetterman against Oz, because I remember quite a few people in conservative circles saying things along the lines of, um, I don't know about this Fetterman guy, but Dr. Oz, really? And yeah, I think maybe he's done an okay. I haven't totally followed what he's done in the CMS gig, and he seems likable as an individual, and obviously he was very successful as a surgeon and author and all that sort of stuff. But I think we got to a preference cascade there where it was like, okay, it's kind of okay for people to support Fetterman because maybe there's a chance that this guy might actually turn out to be. He had he had free thinker tendencies, maybe kind of the say what you want and it really doesn't matter, and how much of that was he's recovering from a stroke, and how much of that is this guy this guy is in full idgaf mode and he's going to do the best for his state. And yeah, he's been a pleasant surprise, I think, for those who are obviously for people on the right, but also anybody center right or center left who thinks, hey, here's somebody who can think for themselves. Or
Yeah, I mean, I might not agree with, though I find myself agreeing with him more often than not, but it isn't even necessarily on policy. It's just that he seems authentic and sincere, and he's not pandering. He's not looking to win the next election. He's doing his job. He is trying to represent the American people as they want to be represented. It's like the SAVE Act. It's a 80-20 situation, or 80-20 policy, and yet we're not going to get it because the the politicians are afraid they can't run, or they'll lose votes because of it, even though the majority of the Americans want it. And that just pisses me off, you know?
well, there was another piece that I saw that I thought was interesting. It was an NBC News poll. I'm going to miss the exact numbers, but I think it was a favorability question, and the favorability, those are the favorable opinion of ICE nationwide, 35%. Those with a favorable opinion of, and I'm going to keep talking a little bit because it looks like Jennifer
I've
might have
lost
frozen
you.
up. Those with a favorable opinion of ICE, according to this NBC News poll, 35%. Those with a favorable opinion of the Democratic Party, 30%. So, and we've lost Jennifer. Maybe she'll come back at some point, or maybe she won't. So, this is what happens when you record things live. We're going to give her another moment or two. I'll vamp a little bit. Hey, if you're still watching this, like and subscribe. The button's down there. We'd love to have you on board as a subscriber. We'd love to have you like this video. We're going to give her another moment or two. And if it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. So I'm going to hit the stop recording button. Thanks for watching this edition of the Vandy program. Jennifer Brown was our guest today. And we'll do another one of these. We've got a couple more scheduled. I'm really enjoying this. I hope you are as well. And thanks for watching this far along. Have a blessed day.